Well, with big news today, the Chiefs have kicked off the 2026 offseason with a massive restructure to free up cap space, and we're looking forward to the future moves they make as we head into the NFL Combine, the draft, free agency, all of it. Today, we're going to be covering the most recent news of the Kansas City Chiefs so you can keep up with everything happening in Chiefs football right here on Chiefs Coast Bias. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Chiefs Coast Bias with me, Malgore. And if you're here watching, it just proves when it comes to Chiefs news, you're a bit of a chubby chaser. With that being said, let's get started as we cover the quick hits in the Kansas City Chiefs and the goings-ons around the franchise over the last couple of weeks. We're going to kick it off with news from today. ESPN breaking the story that the Chiefs have restructured Patrick Mahomes' contract. If you look at my episode on the 2026 cap situation, you'll know we saw this coming. Of course, they converted $54.45 million of Patrick Mahomes' salary, which is a bit more than I speculated on, but it frees up a massive amount of cap space. His cap number for this year goes down to $34.65 million, and it adds $11 million to the next 4 seasons. So that's how they made up for it. So if you remember our discussion on the cap, they have to take that $54.45 million and split it up over 5 seasons, this season and the next 4. That's the maximum amount you can spread it out, which means that they didn't clear the full $54 million. You have to take 1/5 of that, keep it on the books for this year, but the next 4 years, they get to divide it out over that $44 million, so it ends up coming just a little over $11 million. And you'll see the column I have on the right here. This is the new numbers for Mahomes' contract. The top year of $85.2 million is for 2027. So for 2026, they got him all the way down to 34.65. For 2027, he's up to 85, which means a year from now, we're going to see another restructure. But as I discussed in the last video, look at those cap hits for Patrick Mahomes after the 2027 season. Those are still reasonable cap hits for a quarterback, especially the one of the caliber of Mahomes. It puts him in line as one of the top paid quarterbacks in the NFL, but the cap number is not egregiously high. They've also added multiple void years to the end of his deal. None of the restructures have spilled into those void years. So I do think there's a chance that we see one more restructure before Mahomes gets a formal extension, what will likely be the last extension of his career. Remember, 2027 season, when they have to convert that $85 million, that will be Mahomes turning 32 during that season. So we will firmly be in the back end of Patrick Mahomes' career. So big news, but of course the Chiefs have more moves to make. You'll remember some of the ones I predicted. They're going to cut Mike Dana. They're going to cut Jawan Taylor. They'll probably cut Drew Tranquill, and possibly trade Trent McDuffie. All of that's going to get them 20 to 30 million under the cap. So big news today coming out, probably the first move in a series of moves. And I think in the next 14 days, you're going to see a lot of clarity. Remember, by the afternoon of March 11th, the Chiefs have to be under the cap. They're currently still $11 million over. Let's move on to the next story, which is Travis Kelce and what's going on with him. I was pretty convinced at the end of the season that this was it for Kelce. He's marrying Taylor Swift. They're going to have a family, what is going to become the most famous baby in human history, and just planning a wedding, doing all that. And he knows from his 2024 season that if he does not take the time to get his body ready, to stay in shape, to be in peak performance, that it's going to hurt him as the season goes on. So Kelce knows that he has a lot of work to put into play. I'm leaning more towards maybe he does come back, especially as I've started to look more into the 2027 cap and the ramifications of how the Chiefs will move money around now and how it will affect their cap going forward. I think that there's a little bit more flexibility than I originally thought. But the news story here is that the Chiefs hope to have him back. If he wants to come back, they're going to bring him back. I don't know what the salary range will be, but here's a quote from the article. Kelce played out the final year of a 2-year, $34 million extension, so he does need a new deal. At that time, we were $50 million plus over the cap. Remember, we're only $11 million over the cap now. So we need to hear something soon, though. That's my main thing is even if it's not public, the Chiefs need to know whether he's coming back soon because he needs to be replaced. Noah Gray is going to get more snaps in a world without Kelce, but they're going to want more depth at tight end. They're going to want to look at free agency. They're going to want to look at the draft. They need clarity on Kelce. But when you look at that last quote, he says, I can't wait to see him back in the building. This is Kelce talking about Eric Bieniemy. He's one of my favorite coaches of all time, one of my favorite people of all time. I've had so many unbelievable growing moments under him as a player person, and I just love the guy. See him back in the building. That could be denial where he's just sort of talking as though he's a Chief, even though maybe he hasn't made the decision. But you could also read that as he is planning on being here next year, and he's going to be seeing Eric Bieniemy in the building day to day. Here's more rumors. This was leading up to Super Bowl week. This was Super Bowl week. This is The Athletic. Had a snippet saying Kelce was seen bouncing around San Francisco parties and events, even as the soon-to-be married man's next move remains uncertain. Retirement's been discussed. Many believe he could return for at least one more season. That word terrifies me. At least. I love you, Travis Kelce. You are the GOAT, but we do not need to be talking about Travis Kelce trying to suit up, taking money, taking a roster spot at 38 years old. But it does say a 14th season looks more real than ever. So I'm starting to lean towards there's a real possibility that Kelce comes back. I still, my gut says it's not going to happen, that he's going to hang it up. Taylor and him, who knows what their dynamic is like behind the scenes, but you have a wedding coming up. I think they both want to start a family pretty quickly. I'm sure she'll be super supportive, but I also wouldn't be surprised if there's some trepidation there on her end as well as on his. So I still think there's a chance that he doesn't come back, but certainly it's more likely than I thought it was originally. And when we look at all the contracts of tight ends, that's the other thing we need to think about. How much is Travis Kelce going to cost the Chiefs? Well, right here we've got the top tight ends in the NFL. You see Kelce slotted in third on his last deal at $17.1 million a year. It was a 2-year deal. I don't think he's going to get that much, but look, he's not going to be paid below Dawson Knox. So I think you're looking at minimum $10 million to keep Kelce. Now, the Chiefs can play a little cap gymnastics with that, add some void years, move some to the future. And when you look at their cap shape going forward, it's not anything that's going to be super detrimental. But as I talked about for a long time in my episode on the cap, the problem with that is the more money you dedicate to him, yes, you can afford it going forward in the cap. It's not going to break the team, but it does decrease the margin for error when the team drafts and when the team signs free agents because they have fewer resources to go around. The cap is a zero-sum game. Every dollar Travis Kelce gets is a dollar someone else cannot get. So I just think it puts a lot of pressure on Brett Veach to make exactly the right moves, and no GM is really capable of batting 1,000. It's just not going to happen. We've also got some news with Chris Jones calling a shot with a bold prediction for Kansas City in 2026. This story February 8th by Justin Churchill. And this is Chris Jones's grade from last season, but his prediction is that the Chiefs are going to go back to the Super Bowl. So why am I showing his PFF info from last season? Well, I don't think there's any scenario of the Chiefs going back to the Super Bowl that doesn't include Chris Jones at least having an above average Pro Bowl caliber season. I think that they could get to a Super Bowl if they had a repeat of this production here, but it's probably going to take a little bit more. He did have a lot of pressures. You can say that was a regression to the mean in terms of not having as many sacks. We could reasonably say that maybe next season he has 1, 2, 3 more sacks than he did this season. And depending on when those could occur, those could be huge changes for the Kansas City Chiefs defense. But I do think we need to see Chris Jones playing a lot better. He's made these predictions in the past and also often followed through, but so much of that getting back to the Super Bowl, even if Chris Jones plays well, totally out of his hands. I think we all know a lot of it's going to come down to how long is Mahomes out? Is he only missing the first 2 games of the season, maybe the first 4? Once you get beyond that, that's really hard to see the Chiefs making a strong playoff push. And if they do, they're probably looking at a wild card. If you're looking at a scenario where Patrick Mahomes only plays 11 games, he misses 6, what's he going to look like when he comes back? He's not going to immediately step in and be the exact same caliber of player with none of that offseason work. So much of the Chiefs' chance of getting a deep playoff run and going back to the Super Bowl is, as it always is, about Mahomes. There's just a larger cloud hanging over that factor going into the 2026 season. Now I want to talk a little bit about Super Bowl odds for 2026. Chris Jones predicting that we'll get back to the dance. What is Vegas saying? Well, here are the odds of the AFC Championship winner. This is as of last week, so these might have changed a little bit, but you'll notice that the Chiefs are fifth in the AFC in terms of odds, which I don't think is unfair, especially when you see that their odds are identical to the team ahead of them in fourth, the New England Patriots, and only very slightly behind the Los Angeles Chargers. So here I think the NFL is saying that they are worried about Mahomes' injury. They are worried that maybe some of the problems with the 25 Chiefs go a little bit beyond some missing time, and they could be a more fundamental, whether it be a talent gap or a scheme issue. And we rightly see, I think, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen a little bit higher, though I'm skeptical. Both of those teams have new head coaches. I think that for one of them it could work out. And if I had to guess, I'd say Baltimore. I'm not sure about Buffalo bringing in a head coach that was an internal promotion. I'm all for getting rid of McDermott, holding him accountable. He hadn't gotten there yet. It clearly wasn't going to happen. So getting rid of McDermott, I think, was a solid move. Promoting the guy that you already had, though, that was running an ineffectual at times offense, an offense that couldn't quite get you over the hump, I don't know if that's a good move or not. But as a Chiefs fan, I like it for two reasons. One, I like the risk. It could hurt the Bills. It could put the Chiefs in a better position to make a run to the Super Bowl because the Bills made a mistake in hiring their next head coach. Second reason, though, is it's a preview for the Chiefs. We all know Andy Reid's not coaching forever. He's going to be 68 this season. What do you think a lot of fans are going to clamor for when Andy Reid retires, assuming the Chiefs have some level of sustained success, even if it's not Super Bowls, but they're still getting deep in the playoffs. They're in the hunt every single year. We don't see a continued decline like we did in 25. What are Chiefs fans going to say? They're going to say promote somebody, promote the OC, promote someone on the offensive side of the ball, maybe even bring back a familiar face. This is a good test of that. Josh Allen is not quite as good as Patrick Mahomes, but he's on the same tier, in my opinion. It's not head and shoulders. It's clear, but it's not to a degree that you can't say that they're comparable. So seeing how Josh Allen and a solid team that's made the playoffs every year respond to having an internal promotion at head coach, I think this is good. It's good for the Chiefs to get an idea of, is this a move they want to make when the situation of Andy Reid's retirement comes up? So I do like that. But as far as the Super Bowl or getting to the Super Bowl, Chiefs all the way down there, I don't think that's quite bulletin board material, but it's not far off. What will irk me is if we get closer to the season and we have more clarity of Mahomes, we see that there's a good chance he's going to come back, if not week one, but very early in the season, so that the Chiefs get maybe 13, 14, 15 games with Mahomes. If we don't see the Chiefs odds jump up, then I do think that's a sign of disrespect. You also have to keep in mind this is before free agency and the draft. The Chiefs are sitting at ninth. They've got draft capital. They've got players they can move for more. They're working on space to sign some free agents. The roster could look a lot different. These odds are certainly going to change a bit. Though the order may not change, I do think the raw numbers on the odds will change. And we also see the odds of the Super Bowl winner. I apologize, that text is a little small, but you're going to see the Chiefs. Let's count it together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, ninth best odds for the Kansas City Chiefs. We've got 3, 4, 5 NFC teams above them. And oddly enough, the Chiefs ahead of the Patriots in terms of winning the Super Bowl. Funny how Vegas works, I guess. So again, I don't think that this is unfair. It's essentially saying the Chiefs are one of the top third. They're in the top third of the league, even with the current roster construction, the current situation with Mahomes. So it doesn't seem egregious. When you look at the specific odds, they're at 1,600. They're really not that far back from the fifth place team. So I'm not seeing a lot of disrespect here from Vegas, but I did think that was interesting. I think they're being realistic because Vegas is cold. They only care about the money, and they only care about making their money off of bets. And I think they have the Chiefs at a pretty good spot. Maybe it's not a bad time to buy on the Kansas City Chiefs. Who knows? Power rankings. These are power rankings that factor in the end of last season, or rather, these are the final 2025 power rankings. That's why you're going to see Seahawks at number 1 because they won the Super Bowl. So where do they put the Chiefs in those terms? 25th. Again, these are not rankings that are saying that as things stand going into the 26th season, Kansas City is the 25th best team. I think you're going to see them a lot higher as power rankings get closer, unless, of course, there's a situation where Mahomes is going to miss extended time in a way that could really negatively affect the team. I think 25th is reasonable. So again, I'm not seeing a lot of bulletin board material here. Here's the next big question. And when we talk about McDuffie, that's when it's time for us to do a little bit of what Andy Reid likes to call tickling your tonsils.
We're going to try to tickle your tonsils.
And the question here is, should Kansas City extend Trent McDuffie's contract in 2026? Well, let's talk about it. Over the cap projects the Chiefs could save 9.9 by extending his contract, so they can get that number down to the minimum. It would go from 13 down to about a little over 3, which I believe is the league minimum for a player in his position. So they can save a little bit of money extending McDuffie. They would save more by trading him. That would get over $13 million off the books. A lot of fans thought this was a lock. I think it's something that they must do, but I've been pretty clear from the beginning that I don't think it's necessarily something they will do because they can make the numbers work. They can make that number really low for 26 to where they don't kick in big paydays till 27. Well, what's going to happen in 27? Jones is going to be off the books. Bolton is going to be off the books. That's going to free up 30 million or more dollars in cap space just with those two players being gone. So the Chiefs are going to have the flexibility in 27 to really eat a large cap hit for McDuffie, which is why I think they might keep him. I disagree with that because I think you need the draft capital and because of the position. You're good at drafting corners and developing them, even in the really late rounds. You're good at finding corner talent off the waiver wire. You're good with scheming so that your corners are put in positions that they can succeed in, even if they're not amazing all-around talents. If there's any place that the Chiefs should be saying, yes, let's offload and trust our coaching and draft process, it's at cornerback. And that's why I think McDuffie would be better if he's traded. But moving on, the next restructure, and this was mentioned in a lot of the articles on Mahomes with his restructure this morning, is Chris Jones. Please look at my episode on the salary cap situation where I explain some different scenarios for how they could extend Chris Jones, how it would affect the cap number going forward, and how workable it is. But they could free up a lot of salary cap space by converting a huge chunk. The scenario I did a very modest cut to just free up a little bit so that I could minimize the prorated the inflated added number on the back end that you have to keep adding to the remaining years. But here, this is much more aggressive, and it's showing that if they wanted to be, they could be very aggressive. And just remember, that makes the number you're adding on the back end each season over the remainder of the deal a lot higher. Jones wants to get there. I still think he's a great player. I've razzed him for taking plays off, but I'm sorry. I watch a lot of football, and defensive players all over the league do that. And I don't mean they just take like multiple plays over and over again off, because I don't think Jones does that either. But when they see a player run past them that they can't catch, there's plenty of players in the NFL that are not, putting in all their effort to chase him down because they know it ain't going to happen. So I don't think that's just on Jones. I think he had a pretty good season overall. And here's his 26 cap numbers, 24, 25, 26 I have on there. And you see that guaranteed, that cap number is $44 million. They can get that base salary all the way down to the minimum. They can also get that roster bonus. They can convert a lot of that as well. Remember that. In my scenarios, I didn't mess with roster bonus, but if the Chiefs wanted to, they could convert that roster bonus and get that base salary down to the league minimum. It would just mean that they have to take all that money and divide it up over the remainder of the deal and add it to each of those years on the back end. So that's a lot. So let's wrap it up. Let's talk about some of these quick hits. So that's been a quick rundown of everything going on with the Chiefs over the last couple of weeks. We're going to see a lot more. So what are we seeing here? Well, I was texting with a friend the other night, and I think a lot of this means that any fan that was hoping for some sort of reset in 26 where they just wait and get the cap right and get Mahomes healthy. I hear a lot of the local sports radio guys kind of mention that on their shows and their pods. That's not happening. That's not happening. I think the only scenario where that happens is if they get news early in the offseason that Mahomes has had a major setback and that he's going to have a hard time coming back. And I don't think that's going to happen because we all know what Eric Bieniemy said about Mahomes.
He's a competitive prick.
So Mahomes is going to come back, I think, as soon as he can. And the Chiefs are not going to consider 2026 a wasted season. And I'm not going to lie, I have to agree with Kansas City on this. As long as you think you're going to have Mahomes for 3/4 of the season or more, you can get in a wild card spot. You know you can get on a run. You cannot give up a year in his window. You've only got so many years of Mahomes left. You've got to take advantage. And the reason I'm not saying there's no scenario where I'd say, reset the cap, get everything right on the 26th season. But when I look at the cap situation the Chiefs are in going forward, there's a lot more flexibility there than you think. And I think that they can be aggressive here and actually not put themselves in a bad position because it boils down to the same thing it would anyway. You have to hit. You have to hit on the moves you make. And that's going to be true whether you're resetting now, whether you're being aggressive now. The only thing that I may differ on them is the stockpiling of picks. I would like to see them move McDuffie if they can get a couple of draft picks for him, because I just think that because you're not going to hit all the time, you need as many shots as you can take. As far as Travis Kelce, I'd rather not see him come back. You had a really good season last year, I think, for your age. I know things didn't work out with the team, but you're the GOAT. Like you have nothing left to prove. You're up there with Jerry freaking Rice in terms of playoff receiving statistics. It doesn't get any better than that. So I would like to see him move on. But either way, I'm okay if he comes back. I just need him to make the decision ASAP so that Kansas City knows what they're planning for. They know the cap ramifications. They know what their options are in terms of who they bring in. I think they're going to need to bring in a blocking tight end. Those can be found very cheap in free agency. Other than that, I think unless they decide to cut Gray, I think they're going to roll with Kelce and Gray, maybe leave Wiley on the roster since he hasn't had a chance to show his potential. So they may not have given up on him. And then I think they sign a large blocking tight end so that they can be a little more effective running the ball. So it's interesting to see a lot of this shaping up where now we may be looking at a Jones restructure. We've seen a Mahomes restructure. We're going to see in the next couple of weeks a lot of players get cut to get them under the cap. And now we're moving into the combine for the start of free agency. I do think the Chiefs are setting up to sign one or two big free agents. I think you're going to see the Chiefs try to swing for one impact free agent. I think you're going to see them get a lot of guys who maybe aren't big in terms of contract or big in terms of being the very top of the free agency rankings, but you're going to see them bring in guys who are in that mid tier and that they know can contribute, specifically at running back. So I'm excited for all of that. I hope you've enjoyed this quick breakdown, some of my hot takes, but I appreciate you if you took the time to do this. I would love it if you could like and subscribe. Definitely helps get the word out there. Just another fat man talking to his computer who wants to talk about Chiefs football, get other people hyped about Chiefs football, and spread the word about the greatness of this dynasty, which we have not seen the end of. So join me again next week. I'm Mal Gore. This is Chiefs Coast Bias, and I hope you have a fan-flippin-tastic day.